Okay, being 6:31, I would like to call to order the Ashland Planning Board meeting of March 24th, 2021. Due to the current COVID-19 pandemic, the governor issued emergency order number 12 that waives the location requirement of public officials at a public meeting. The meeting is being conducted electronically via our Zoom connection, which was posted on the agenda and posted on the town website. The planning board email will be available if anyone has any questions or concerns. Before I do roll call, I just want to note that Kathleen DeWolf has just, prior to the meeting, was sworn in as a regular member of the planning board. She had previously served as the BOS representative and now is a regular member of the planning board. So she has been sworn in and is officially a member. So roll call, Kathleen DeWolf.
Present.
Paula Hancock.
Present.
And Margene Badger, present. Also present is Andrew Lane and David Farnham. Also Anthony Guyot and John Volpe. And also present is Susan McLeod, our land use assistant, and Andy Fitch, a member of the Ashland Select Board, is also present. Our first item on the agenda is the minutes of March 3rd. Has everyone had a chance to read them, review them?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of March 3rd as presented.
Okay, and a second.
I'll second.
And roll call vote, Kathleen DeWolf,
Aye.
Paula Hancock,
Aye.
and Margene Badger, aye. Okay. The next item on the agenda is a continuation of a public hearing. It was started at our March 3rd meeting. And we did vote to continue it to this date and time. The minutes of March 3rd that we just approved does reference the conversations that we had and some of the issues that we had. I would like to now reopen the public hearing at 6:34. Okay. And we were last discussing the issue of, I think, primarily what was actually being done in the particular building, which is at in the Squam River Hydro property tax map lot 17-8-2, which is at 6 Mill Street. And this hearing that we are continuing is for Farnham Towing and Recovery, who is leasing a space from Squam River Hydro. And I assume, Andrew Lane, that you're here to represent Squam River Hydro.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay. The last, okay, just to kind of briefly review what we discussed at the previous meeting. There was an explanation by David Farnham of what he does there. He referenced towing and recovery, fixing flat tires, lockouts, jump starts, working closely with local garages, does insurance tows, also buys auto parts that are worth salvaging, or if not worth anything, parts are towed to an auto recycling business. He said that he does take some individual parts and sell them. He does some auto recycling as a portion of his business. The concern that we had, again, reviewing a little bit from the previous meeting, the primary concern that we had was the auto recycling issue. And that stemmed from, we mentioned both our zoning ordinance, section 3.5, which prohibits junkyards within the town of Ashland. And we also mentioned New Hampshire RSA 236:112, which defines junkyards. And both of those, both our zoning ordinance definition and the RSA definition of junkyards, also includes automotive recycling as part of the definition. The other issue was that the town zoning ordinance prohibits junkyards in Ashland. And a question was asked rightfully, what about Buskey's Auto, which is also a junkyard? And we explained that Buskey's Auto pre-existed zoning in the town of Ashland. So it is a grandfathered enterprise and junkyard. But the zoning ordinance, which was put into place, does forbid any other junkyards in town. At this point, I'm going to ask Mr. Farnham, do you have anything to add to what we discussed at the previous meeting?
I do not at this time.
Okay. Questions from the planning board, Kathleen or Paula?
I have no further questions at this time.
I have no further questions at this time.
Okay. Okay. And is there anyone else here in the meeting that wishes to speak?
Yes, I'd like to speak. This is Andrew Lane.
Yes.
Okay, so he actually is only supposed to be, he is supposed to be confined to the interior of the building. That's all we rented him. That's the only space that he's paying rent on.
Mhm.
So the classification of a junkyard shouldn't be applying, and anything that he's doing outside of that is outside of his lease.
Okay. I do have, let me just pull up your lease, the language in the lease that applied to what he was authorized to do is, quote, car repairs and storage of up to 10 cars and a towing business. What I may just a little further review, Andrew, for you, since you did miss the last meeting, where we're coming from in the zoning ordinance. In addition to the statement that says junkyards are prohibited in the town of Ashland, it also talks about junkyard or automotive recycling yard. An automotive recycling means an establishment or place of business which is maintained, operation, or used for storage, storing, keeping, buying, or selling junk, or for the maintenance or operation of an automotive recycling yard, which also means any place of business or storage or deposit of motor vehicles purchased for the purpose of dismantling the vehicles for parts. And that, a lot of that information comes directly from the New Hampshire RSA. So the action of taking an automobile apart and doing something with those individual parts, such as selling or borrowing or trading, bartering, I'm sorry, I did not mean borrowing, bartering. So selling or bartering parts of automobiles is considered automotive recycling, which is a subcategory of junkyard. So that's, and that is reflected in both our zoning ordinance and in the RSA. Okay. So we had, you mentioned your lease, Mr. Lane. Does your lease also allow him to put his towing vehicles and towed vehicles in the parking area of your building?
I don't think that was ever addressed, actually, because we didn't, when we signed the lease, we didn't really know exactly what he was going to be doing.
Okay.
We knew, we mapped out the area of the mill that he could be doing his projects.
Mhm.
And then he did expand, he expanded from that. He went into the double garage door area that had previously been rented out to another automotive storage facility, which was previously approved by the planning board. So I forget exactly what they were called, like Evergreen.
Motor
Yeah.
Sports.
So Evergreen Motorsports used to store cars in that area.
Okay.
And I think they were allowed up to 10 was the final decision. I don't think they probably never had more than 2 at one time, as far as I know. So they were so I think that was why we felt that he could go in that area too. And then he also took over part of what used to be a powder coat area, where someone stole our lighting before he got there. But anyway, that was a separate story. So yeah, I mean, we certainly had never envisioned that he would have stuff parked outside more than like just, his own vehicle maybe.
Is the town averse to that?
Well, I'm assuming that's the biggest objection to a junkyard is that you can see it.
Not necessarily. The primary definition of first of all, the primary definition of a junkyard and or automotive recycling yard has to do with a business that takes cars in, takes them apart, sells the parts. That's the automotive recycling. Parking is another issue. Could be. That the primary issue right here is the definition of junkyard and the included automotive recycling.
So the town would be, this is Chris Lane, the
Okay.
town would be okay with the towing trucks being parked outside? Would that be okay?
What does she mean by
Parking.
towing? The tow vehicles themselves or vehicles that were towed?
No, the vehicles that tow things. Is that right?
Obviously, parking would become an issue if it overflowed into the public street. That would be something that would be considered in the type of business that were there. I think what we're trying to deal with right now is whether we approve the site plan application as it's been presented and dealing with what is actually happening there right now. The what ifs can be really should be dealt with separately.
Okay.
Well, okay, so I imagine, so there is a very long ramp leading up to those double doors,
Yes.
which I think would be more than enough to park a tow truck and keep it off, well out. I mean, actually, there's a fence between there and the road, so I think that would be a good location if you did have to park it outside. I would recommend to David that he talks to you about amending his application to only do approved activities, and that, rather than have a separate hearing, because obviously I don't want a junkyard out there and nobody wants a junkyard out there. So that would be my suggestion to Dave.
We need to act on this particular application. I'm gonna check with Susan, our land use assistant, as far as process advice, as far as amending. I am not comfortable with amending an application such as this.
Okay, I mean, well, is Dave
Uh,
available? Can he talk on the phone right now?
Yep,
David
yeah, I'm
is-
here.
Oh, you can
David
hear
is
him.
here. He's on the phone. Yes.
So, I mean, is that
Uh,
even a practical, is that something you would
can-
even consider, Dave? Or not?
Parking out on the fence line.
So basically clean up your act. You don't have any vehicle except your own towing vehicle in that ramp. And you no longer do what they're telling us is junkyard
Related.
related, which means that you cannot, on that location, I
Take
guess,
cars apart.
take cars apart or sell pieces. You'd have to just use that for storage. Because they have approved storage in that area before of vehicles.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, great.
Okay, well, Susan,
Done, we're done.
no, excuse me.
Yeah,
On
again,
TV.
I do recall the case of Mr. Ecker and his vehicles, and it was clear that they were intact vehicles. There would be no mechanical work done on them whatsoever. He assured us that in some way, the floor plan was set up, that there would be some containment possible if there was any kind of leakage whatsoever. I think the other part of this property is that it's in that sensitive area, so close to the river. And we've already gotten at least 2 complaints from abutters of various fuels leaking, even on the outside of the building where some vehicles had been worked on outside. And it has been witnessed by both our police chief and our building inspector. So it has become an issue about taking things apart or draining fluids or any of that sort. If you're towing a vehicle because it's been wrecked in an accident or something like that, it has to eventually go someplace else other than being stored in this facility.
Sure.
So, and it was the taking apart of vehicles that seems to be the major problem, and that's where you get into the definition of salvage. And that has multi-layers. In order to even have a salvage, you're supposed to have a state license, and to have a state license, you have to have approval by the governing body of the select board, and they are advised by the ZBA since it's not actually allowed in this town. So there's multi-layers involved in the whole process of running that type of business. So what is clear right now with the site plan is this the location that any of those activities could actually happen? It started out as, yes, simple towing and recovery. So that was, but even on this application, he does mention auto parts, auto recycling. So that's the problematic component to this especially.
Yeah. And one of the, just follow up on that, the auto parts and the recycling, one of the letters of complaint did address the fact that it was more of a salvage business, buying and selling parts, which were part of that business. And in addition, we have seen Facebook posting on Farnham Towing and Recovery Facebook site, most recently on March 8th, buying all junk cars, equipment, trailers, farm machinery, broken sleds, ATVs, motorcycles, $50 to $1,000, message with pics and info, same day pickup, and several marketplace postings on Facebook also of parts that are being sold and salvaged and then sold. So we do have all of that indication that it is more than just a towing and recovery business. And that is the issue that we are dealing with right now. One question, Susan, have you ever dealt with amending a site plan application? Or would it be best for a brand new application if the business changes?
I suppose in some ways, the challenge here is whether or not you could conditionally approve this site plan. And the condition is that it's only towing and recovery, and that any other component of this business ceases since it's really not allowed in this town. And just to further clarify, because at one point, Mr. Farnham also asked that if it wasn't part of his business, whether it was part of his personal use of the rented space, the RSA makes it clear too that it can be a personal enterprise. It does not have to be a commercial buying and selling. If somebody does it on a personal level, it still has to meet the same standards that the state has set. And especially, again, being in the river overlay there, it would have the same problems whether an individual who's just doing it as a personal enterprise as opposed to a commercial one rings the same alarm bells. So,
Yeah. So if I kind of summarizing what Susan suggested, if we were to approve this, it would be with probably a very detailed set of conditions. So, so whether that is something, Mr. Farnham, whether that is something that you would be willing to abide by, and any conditions like that obviously would be subject to inspection. If there were any violation of conditions, it could be fines, or it could be removal of your approval for the business.
So David, I think we're looking for a comment. Are you able to have a second location for your other parts of your business that are not approvable, or are you just gonna?
That's what I'm trying to think on at the moment.
I think, I mean, we could keep we could keep the storage part going and even the towing part going, and we could keep it away from the river, which would, to my opinion, would be those double door areas and that long ramp where you could probably park your tow truck. But it sounds like you're not going to be able to do any kind of dismantling, and also you got to be very careful with any oil leaks or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't. Right, I don't see that being a problem. I'll have to find another location to do that aspect of it, I suppose.
Well, that's what you got to decide, because otherwise it's not,
They won't approve it.
they want to prove it, and that's all you're going to be allowed to do in that location. So you either, you're either going to terminate the lease and leave, or you're going to change. You're going to have two different businesses, two different business locations.
Just a caution, moving the salvage or auto recycling business to another location in Ashland would run into the same issues.
No.
Yeah, I figured
Yeah,
there might be another town nearby that you could do that from.
Right. Yeah, if we can change some things, that doesn't seem to be a problem. I don't see a problem with that.
Okay.
I think, we've got to be really honest about this, Dave, because if I was them, I would check on you. So don't even, but if you're comfortable doing it, then agree, because I think
I don't see it being a problem. We can definitely change some things around.
And I mean, personally, I've had comments from the realtor who's trying to sell the building for me that he's seen a lot of junk outside, and I don't really like that either. So,
Isn't this a topic that they should discuss not at the public hearing at this point, between the landlord and the leaseor and the leasee? This is nothing that the planning board can act on. This is all right.
So
this is a contractual issue.
My point was that I was going to ask David to ask for a limited approval from you guys, conditional, and that's all I wanted to say. So thank you.
As a former member of the Conservation Commission, I have very strong issues with this type of storage being done directly over the river. And that brings DES into the picture too.
Right, so I think we could confine him. There's only one piece of that is over the river, and I think we'd have to.
It's not just over the river, it's within the watershed,
Okay, well,
which DES has jurisdiction over.
I agree with you. Obviously, it's very important to me that nothing gets in the water. Very important. We do have, on the other side of it, we have, number 6 oil Superfund site from which is being monitored by DES.
Mhm.
But that's like treacle, so it hasn't really moved. But this side is clean. I've had it checked. Quite a few different engineers have been in there, and this was kind of a surprise to me that you're telling me that there has been evidence of oil leaks. So that was news to me.
The two of the complaints from neighbors mentioned oil and or fuel on the driveway within your building, your property boundary, but also some running down the street. And that is concern. That is something we do not want hazardous materials getting obviously into the river, whether it's through direct drainage into the river or through storm drains or through drains within your building. That cannot happen.
No,
And
I
that's where
100%
DES would
support
step in.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So likely, Kathleen made a good point that some of this discussion, if the business is going to change, or the parameters of the business are going to change, some of that discussion probably needs to occur between you, Mr. Lane, and you, Mr. Farnham, outside of this meeting. One option at that point would be that we continue the hearing to another meeting. The other option that we have is to close the hearing and make a decision on the information that we have had, and whichever way the decision goes, it would be a discussion among the planning board members as to what that decision would be based on the current facts. So those are the two options that we have.
Well, thank you for spelling that out. I'm going to leave that choice to David Farnham.
It's as in you guys pretty much want to see change. Is that what you're trying to say?
Our primary,
Before the next meeting?
if we were to continue the hearing and give Mr. Lane and Mr. Farnham a chance to resolve some of these issues, and then come back to us at the continuation of the hearing at the next meeting with some revisions and whether the lease or the business, that would be one consideration we could do. But it would have to resolve the issues that we have had up to this point, dealing with, especially dealing with the recycling of the materials. You would have to look at what does a towing business, we still may, even if you were to revise all of the application and the type of business and the activities that you're doing there, we still may impose some conditions upon that if we were to finally to approve it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to go and resolve some issues and then meet again and try it again.
Kathleen and Paula, your opinions.
I would like to resolve it tonight with the information that's at hand.
I think I would go with Kathleen. I think this needs to be resolved at some point, or we could go on for several more meetings.
If we were to conclude the public hearing tonight and the planning board make a decision whether to approve the site plan as presented with the facts that have been noted, or if we do not approve it, you can always come back with a new application with the changes. But it would also, I think, in fairness to the applicant and the property owner, I think we might consider continuing the hearing. However, I would be very concerned that, for instance, if we continued the hearing to our next meeting, which is in a couple weeks, I believe, we would obviously expect all the issues to be resolved. And I think we would likely expect the activities that are in question cease as soon as possible. Yes,
I think
Susan.
That's a very reasonable offer. Thank you.
Susan,
Yeah, if you decide to close the hearing and then make a decision, if you decided to approve it with conditions, again, it's approval upon conditions met.
mhm,
So you could say that it's not actually approved till, once again, it's open to inspection, that that activity has ceased and all the parts are gone or whatever else. So that is your option with how you structure any conditions that are set on this particular
mhm.
business. Because in the end, I mean, I know nobody wants to shut any business down, but again, this one is problematic in that it's against the zoning. It's not following state regulations, and there are safety concerns and environmental concerns. So you're just trying to find a way that this could possibly work or not. So that's the decision as to what kind of conditions and how you set them. But it is subsequent precedent, and certainly we've usually had based conditionally on passing inspections in any case. Now there have been
Absolutely.
inspections already, so there would be a follow-up to see if conditions have changed.
Mhm.
That doesn't seem to be a problem. I think we can handle that.
Okay. Do I have a motion of any kind from members of the planning board?
I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Okay, the motion has been made by Kathleen to close the public hearing. Do I have a second? I'll second it for discussion. Okay. Once we close the public hearing, and this is primarily for the applicants and property owner. Once we close the public hearing, it is then time for the planning board members to deliberate on their decision. It is no longer a time for the applicant or property owner or abutters or other interested parties to offer testimony. It closes the public hearing, and we are in a deliberative mode. Okay, just wanted to clarify that for everyone. Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded to close the public hearing. Roll call vote. Paula Hancock,
Aye.
Kathleen DeWolf,
Aye.
and Mardine Badger, aye. Okay. So the public hearing is closed at 7:07. Okay, now. Okay, now it's our time to decide what we are going to do. Kathleen, toss out something.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Based on the application that we accepted as complete, that's what I would choose to act on tonight. Any deliberation between the landlord and the leasee should be worked out. And then I would suggest Mr. Farnham come forward with a new application for us to act on.
I think I agree with that assessment. That way, the issues brought up tonight can be resolved between the owner and the tenant, leaser or leasee. And he can come back at some future date with a new site plan review application, having resolved the issues we've discussed tonight.
I would suggest that a building inspector, code enforcement officer could be contacted to help explain what needs to be done.
Definitely.
If more clarification is needed.
Susan, is there any way that you can explain about DES involvement in this business, in this?
Yeah, well, again, when you're approving, if you decide to approve with any conditions, you can also set that it's contingent upon receiving all permits from all other agencies. So if he needed to do something with DES, whether it's a PBN or some kind of containment plan or whatever they would request, then again, that would have to be part of the acceptance that it is approved when all those various components are received. I guess the only other thing I would add to this conversation is, what does Mr. Farnham do in the meantime? If you turn down this application, does he have to cease his business, or are you going to give him the opportunity to stop the salvage component of it, or does the whole thing have to stop until he starts over again? So this is where, I mean, up till this point, this whole process that started back in what, October, been conducting business,
Yes.
and as we discover all the different regulations that go along with this, it has continued. You have to decide whether or not, feeling that it's not supposed to be there to begin with, or it might possibly be an environmental hazard and a safety hazard within the building, as some of the inspection reports have indicated, that along with your decision, you should be thinking about the entire decision and the impact immediately, as opposed to starting over again with a new application.
Yeah. If we were to do, Kathleen and Paula, if we were to do a conditional approval, what conditions would you like to see as priority conditions.
All motor vehicle salvage materials, including snowmobiles, etc., be removed from the premise. When I first read the application, I thought this was the intent of the application was for a towing and recovery business, nothing else. And that's what was on the application.
Mhm.
And as Susan said, this has been going on for quite a few months.
I would, yeah.
I think we should try to wrap this up so Mr. Farnham knows that
Mhm.
A, we have a junkyard ordinance in the town of Ashland. B, his auxiliary business appears to fit the definition of junkyard automobile salvage. The sensitive area where he's doing his business needs to be addressed. There seems to be an awful lot of conditions, and I'm not sure how we will know that within 2 weeks or our next meeting that it has been complied with, or this will go on for perhaps another month or so.
Mhm. I would say not only all the salvage materials and parts be removed from the premise, but also that activity of salvaging parts be
Yes.
stopped.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
I would say immediately,
yes.
that the activities be stopped immediately. I would also with as far as conditional approval, I would also want to see even with just simply a towing business, there are issues often with the leakage of fuels and oil and other hazardous materials. I would make any, if we were to approve this with conditions, I would say that there must be a plan for remediating any spillage of hazardous materials, whether
Is it-
on the pavement of the property or on the adjacent street.
I'm concerned about any drainage of fuel or other hazardous waste that can make its way into the river through the drainage system of the building
Mhm.
or other means other than that.
There are accepted practices and methods of containing a spill if there is one. There are accepted practices and methods of cleaning up spills and so on. So I would expect to see a plan of that type. Um,
We've also discussed tonight the issue of parking as to where the various trucks, in quotes, will be parked that he will use for towing and recovery purposes.
Yeah, they should not be restricting public passage of vehicles and pedestrians on that street. Um, Okay. And I would specify that any of the activities that are defined within our zoning ordinance junkyard section and the RSA chapter 236 dealing with motor vehicle recycling yards and junkyards, any activities that fall within those descriptions be restricted, be ceased. Yeah, and I think there should be reference to the zoning ordinance and to the RSA specifically. Yeah. There should also be how the inspection report that we had from the Department of Fire Safety.
Some of those issues need to be resolved also
Definitely.
for the health and safety of any employee, as well as any surrounding properties. We have to remember that, yes, this is a commercial district, but they're also residents abutting this particular area.
I would also say that the issues brought up in that report do need to be addressed. And that some sort of inspection plan should be put in place so that there's some sort of inspection done going forward, I would think.
And I think what we can say is that inspection of the changed, in a sense, the changed business, if it became just a towing recovery business, any inspection should be done by the fire chief to indicate which issues need to be dealt with, both interior and exterior, depending what areas the tenant is using. Any areas that the tenant is using inside or outside must be safe. Susan?
Yeah, this is where you can sort of divide them into conditions precedent, that these
Mhm.
conditions have to be met before it's officially approved. And subsequent conditions would be like follow-up inspections or something that
Mhm.
follows the initial approval, which can be revoked if those conditions aren't met. So you can divide them into what has to be done prior to it being fully approved, and then
Mhm.
what the approval is also based on going forward.
Going forward.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So it sounds like quite the list. So you can divide it into the before and after
Mhm.
categories.
Yeah. Okay. So we have mentioned, let me just review, that any salvage or recycling activities must cease. Any recycling or salvage activities, any recycling and salvage materials must be removed from the premises. That the business will not include any activities that are defined as prohibited in our zoning ordinance, and it will not include any activities that fall into the auto recycling definitions of the RSA. that there be a plan for remediating, preventing and remediating spillage of hazardous substances. That their parking not restrict safe passage of vehicles and pedestrians on Mill Street. That there be an inspection by the fire chief to include interior and exterior areas that are being used by the business to ensure that they are safe. And also that there be follow-up inspection by building inspector, code enforcement officer also. I think we covered everything.
I think it's incumbent upon the applicant to reach out to DES to see if there's any issues that he might have to address.
Okay. So contact
Yeah.
DES regarding,
Any possible permits necessary.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Necessary for a towing business in that location.
Yes,
Mhm.
within 150 feet of the Squam River.
Mhm. Okay. I'm just looking over my list.
We have to make sure the applicant has a copy of Title 10, Transportation, Chapter 236, Motor Vehicle Recycling Yards and Junk Yards.
That's the RSA
That's the
236.
RSA
Yes,
236, colon
That
112.
was, yeah, that was sent to him after the last meeting.
Okay,
was,
thank you,
yes,
thank you, Susan,
yes.
thank you.
Mhm.
And if he has any questions on any of that, he can refer to Ms. McLeod, the land use assistant, and Mr. Vian, our building inspector, code enforcement officer.
Mhm. Yeah. Are we ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we conditionally approve the towing, the Farnham, what is the proper name of it?
Farnham's
towing
towing and recovery.
Okay, that and that alone. With conditions,
With the conditions that I just went through.
yes. So he can continue with the towing and recovery business, but everything else must cease.
Mhm. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other discussion? Susan, any thing we've missed on the conditions? Trying to think.
No, I think you've clarified that
we've-
the precedent is to cease all of the
Mm-hmm.
salvage activity and to clear any stored fuels,
Mhm.
parts, or whatever that is associated with that.
Yes.
And then precedent is keeping track of that the parking situation and fuel containment and any follow-up inspections are an ongoing part of looking at this business.
Right. Just making some notes. Okay. Ready for the vote?
Yes,
Okay, roll call vote. Kathleen,
aye.
Paula,
Aye.
and Mardine, aye. Okay, so it is approved with an extensive list of conditions. We will have the notice of decision within 5 days, if not sooner. But I do want to stress very much the importance, Mr. Farnham, of following these conditions, maintaining a safe business that abides by the regulations.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so that is done. Okay. So thank you, Mr. Farnham. Thank you, Mr. Lane.
Appreciate it.
Next item. Okay, next item on our agenda is Commerce Properties. And find that. And I have a couple things I want to put up as we start talking about that to help us understand location. And Tony Guyot, you're here, and John Volpe are here for that. One thing I want to put up first, let me find it. Let me just close something here. Okay. I want to put up first the plan, the the plot plan that Tony Randall did when you first approached the select board about purchasing the extra piece of property. Okay, just to get everybody get reference, let me share the screen. This and share this. Okay. Just first to orient everybody. Again, this is Winter Street right here where my mouse is moving. Can
Mhm.
everybody see this on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And the property in question is 14 Winter Street. The front boundary of that property is right along here, and it goes back. There are 2 buildings here that I believe you said have, let's see, where did I? 6 units, 6 units in the 2 buildings. Is that correct?
Correct. One is
Okay.
5 units and one is 1 unit.
Okay, okay. And then the property widens as we go back, and the original rear boundary was along this line. And then
Next line over.
then yes, this line right here.
That line.
This was the setback. This was the original rear property line. A piece of property was added at this back end. Okay. And just a couple other things I want to point out here. The driveway to this property kind of straddles the line of 14 and 10 Winter Street somewhat. There's some parking area in here, some parking area drive here, and it actually goes over a little bit to the neighboring property, which you also owned by Commerce Properties. Okay, so that is,
Excuse me?
yes, go
The
ahead.
the driveway is completely on one property.
It is, okay.
It is. Again, you're looking at the setback line.
Oh, I see it, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
the driveway for that is completely
Yes.
on one property.
On
On 14.
14, yes,
Correct.
yes. Okay, does have an extension over to the neighboring property, but
Yeah.
The driveway is here. Okay. Thank you for the correction. Okay, so
I
Yes.
didn't realize that was the setback. I thought, is that the
Yeah,
driveway?
yeah.
Yeah.
This is the boundary line and here's the setback here. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, for this side. Okay, so I'm gonna close that one because now what I need to bring up is the one that we just received. Let me just find that down here. I've got multiple things in here. Let's see. I believe this. Okay, there we go. Okay, I want to share a screen again. The reason why I wanted to show that first one was because, and I know you had problems with the large site plan that you dropped off with the additions on it. And I took that large one down to Staples and had some smaller copies made so that we could work with it. But what I did to help us understand some of this is I basically took my colored pencils. So the solid red outline is the entire property, including the added piece. This dotted line in red here is where the new piece was added. I kind of sketched in some of the driveway area. It's rough. It didn't show up. It was a very light color, so it didn't show up well on the copy. The setbacks were indicated all the way around to the perimeter of the property. And the new proposal, the concept that they're working with right now is to add 2, 3, 4 buildings for a total of 8 units and parking here. Okay, so I'm gonna step back. Tony, can you explain anything else that you want to explain? And Mr. Volpe also.
No, that pretty much explains what you're after there.
Okay.
There's two extra parking spaces provided in this map as well, beyond the 2 that are ruled for each unit.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11,
Should be 18
13,
of them.
14, 15, 18, yes.
Yeah.
18 spaces, okay.
So, and the only other thing that your map, and I know it's hard to see unless you have the one in front of you, is every utility on this property that would have to be connected lies within this property.
Okay,
Every connection will be on this property. There'll be no outside digging on any other property. So
okay.
that's just the one thing you can't see where all the sewer is on this.
I think what I did see vaguely, I think there was an indication of a sewer line
Correct.
somewhat along here.
Mhm.
And I think the water line showed coming on the back side of the
On the
building.
left.
Okay.
Correct. But
Okay.
there is a manhole, there's a sewer connection right at the end of the sewer line, the dark line you see heading into that
Okay. Okay.
buffer zone, right there is a manhole. So
Right
everything
here.
falls,
Okay.
all utilities are already on the property for this.
Okay. Now questions from anybody? Paula, Kathleen, any questions we have? That
No.
any input that we can give to help pull this project together?
The
Go
one
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, the one thing that I mentioned to Mardine, that I think this would be a very good learning tool for the board sometime in the spring to actually do a site walk when you begin, so we can visualize how this is happening, because this is fairly unique for Ashland, where you are putting these 4 units in. And I'm just very curious to see what the actual physical, the lay of the land looks like. So if that's something we could have with either Mr. Guyot or Mr. Volpe, or both of them, I think that would be
It is
helpful.
staked out right now currently, granted a
Ah.
little rough because it's mostly just brush in there. It's
Well-
not a very wooded area.
We can't just walk on there. We have to post that we're meeting and doing
Oh, no,
it.
I
Yeah.
understand. I'm just saying it is,
Yeah.
it is roughly staked out right now
Okay,
for
When-
the walkthrough purpose.
okay. When we look down, just from Winter Street, when we look down, we see a tree line.
Yes.
Where is that tree line in relation to this?
The tree
Dotted
line,
line.
brush line that he's mentioning,
Okay,
if you're looking at the tree line, brush line, that is, I'm gonna say it's more just brush.
Okay,
There's probably
okay.
a dozen trees, 12 trees in that whole
Okay.
area. So
Okay.
is it
What-
beyond this dotted line or is it on the?
no, the tree line is right, the way it's set now is the berm of the hill starts right at the back of these units, about 15 feet off the backside of all the
Okay.
green units you see.
Okay, okay,
That starts to slope down to the bottom of the property. And
okay,
that tree line, it's almost situated, so the tree line is within that 15, any trees after 15 feet out wouldn't be touched, but it's not heavily wooded.
Okay.
Even where
Okay.
you see the greenhouses now, you can
Mhm.
walk pretty freely through there.
okay,
So
Okay.
it's not a heavily wooded area. It's where the plan says brush tree line, it's mostly brush.
okay, okay,
Yeah,
It's just when you drive down Winter Street, that's what you see, that brush line.
well, you,
And,
yeah.
yeah,
mhm,
you-
so it was
you
hard
see
to
the
envision,
backyard.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly
Once you-
where these units were gonna be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, you
see
can
the
only drive so
backyard.
slow down Winter Street and try to get a glimpse of it.
Okay.
Oh,
Um,
Wait a minute,
Yeah.
I can barely see the squiggles on my map that must indicate that brush.
Yeah,
okay.
that's,
Okay, yeah. Can you describe what, I noticed each building is, I believe, 26 by 60.
correct.
So each unit is going to be
780 square feet.
780 square feet, which,
Yes.
which exceeds our minimum dwelling size,
Mhm.
which is
Correct.
good. Are they going to be 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom? Any idea yet, or is this probably still in the, somewhat in the
That-
works?
2 bedroom.
you know,
2 bedroom, okay, okay. Okay. Other questions? Where is the roadway going to be in this?
So if you're looking
Design.
you're looking at the existing driveway.
Mhm,
So as you come in the existing driveway, the
mhm.
road it literally goes in there. It's outlined in the purple in your map. And the blue penned in areas that you have are the parking spaces.
Okay,
So
okay.
if you look at the farthest set of parking down in,
Mhm.
there's right there on that is going to end up being about a 22-foot parking space with a 45-foot space behind it to back out and start your egress towards the road.
Okay.
So where your mouse is now, you're pointing right to the backside of what's the proposed driveway.
Okay, so the driveway is, whoops, is in this width area.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay,
you're in it.
okay. Question. Is there enough space for a fire truck to get down there and turn around? That will be an
well,
issue.
I don't know what the situation would be for turning around. I can obviously make the parking lot bigger at the end to turn the fire truck around, but we're talking to actually make a turn with a fire truck, you'd need every bit of that lot and more to actually just go in and turn around.
Okay. What
mean,
I,
if you drive in freely all day long.
what I would suggest before you finalize anything is sit down with Steve Heath, the fire chief, and have him go over the plans and see if there are any issues with safety access. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, he needs to make sure he can get down there and get
Oh,
out.
That
yeah.
opening behind all the parking spots, as you look at your corner where it says 26 feet,
Yes, right here.
that's the egress. That's the actual road space with a
Okay.
car. That's what's
Mhm.
left to drive in. You can
Yeah.
easily put a fire truck through a 26-foot
Okay.
driveway all day long.
Okay, but he will need to review the plan.
No, I understand.
Okay,
That's fine.
I currently hold a Class CDLA license in my pocket. I'm quite familiar. And the
okay,
layout with this was to leave plenty of space in there.
okay, okay.
For-
But that,
for-
when
Yeah.
eventually this comes to us as a finished presented site plan,
Yeah.
that is one of the questions. That is one of the department heads that we will be consulting to make sure everything is,
Yeah.
is appropriate. What kind of surface are you going to have on the driveway down here?
We were hoping to just keep it gravel.
Okay,
I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
seem to make sense to pave
Mhm.
all that. It wouldn't be
Yeah.
very fitting location.
Yeah. In fact, yes, that would be much better for the drainage and the pervious surface is much better. Yes.
And what, would-
I know you probably don't see it, people don't see it without an actual graphic in front of them, but
Mhm,
the lot is almost flat, very gentle slope.
mhm,
Like I
Mhm.
said, to about 15, 20 feet to the left of all the green buildings.
Okay, okay,
That's a very gentle slope. After that, it starts its downhill run.
right, right.
So it's a very, very easy lot to maintain drainage on.
Mhm, mhm. But having the gravel is probably preferred. Yeah,
Much better.
definitely. Yes. You said it's a gentle slope. However, when you extend the sewer line all the way down here, do you anticipate having to put in any kind of a pump station to get sewer back all the way up to the street?
None. The sewer actually flows. If you're looking at this diagram, the one that you have outlined, the sewer already flows from right to left downhill towards the back property of Buskey's. That's the sewer main. It runs right through that property for the town of Ashland.
Okay,
And the elevations for the invert are about 2.5 feet further down than we need just to make a flow for all
Okay.
that property.
okay,
It's all gravity fed.
okay. Again, as when we get the final plan, we will be
Yep.
checking with water and sewer.
Yeah, I
Make sure
don't
that, yeah.
have to double check the invert locations for sure.
right, right. Let's see. And then obviously work with the electric department also for extending electricity. whatever
Already
is
on site.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a pole already on site as far as doing a connection.
Okay,
Yeah, we don't
Are
have, like I said, we don't have to go to the street for anything.
okay. Are you going to bury the electric or
Correct.
above? Okay,
It'll be buried underground and it'll only require a connection at that pole,
okay, okay.
which the pole on the pole on this particular site is about 50 feet, just slightly to the right of the back, right there where your mouse is. You bring
Okay.
it back to the right, a little
Okay.
bit more to your right. Nope,
Okay.
up the hill. There's a little dot. You see the end, you see the end of the parking that you have that goes left?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Martine, I'm pointing
okay.
to it right now.
Oh,
There's a little,
Okay.
there's a little purple point right there. And that's where-
okay, all right,
That's the
Okay.
utility.
all right.
And I hope
So-
you're looking from the same view.
Yeah. The copy did not, came
The-
through much.
The
lighter.
colors don't, yeah, the
Yeah.
purple colors
Yeah,
don't show
that's
very well.
Let's see, other questions.
will these be slab foundations or something else?
No, they will be 4-foot, full foundations,
Oh, okay.
4 foot deep with floors and everything in them. Full foundations. It just doesn't make sense to do it on a slab being that they're
Mhm,
for rent. There's
Yeah.
too many variables.
Okay, yeah. This old stone foundation back here. Any idea what that is or what you'll have to do with that?
It's not much of a foundation. I know the map makes it look like something nice, but it's basically already been caved in for the most part.
Okay.
It'll probably have to just be cleaned up and leveled over. I
Okay,
mean, we can't leave it, obviously, because there would be a hazard in the back. It's about 6 feet high. And along with the other foundation that's on the map, there's an old concrete foundation right off the left side of the first unit. You see, that'll have to come out as well.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
But as far as excavating work, it's a very easy lot to work with.
Okay.
Would there
Go
be
ahead.
any storage sheds or that type of thing on the property for storage for the tenants, or would that be just in their unit?
We would try to incorporate ample storage within each unit.
Okay. Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Susan, do you have any questions, comments?
No, it looks like a very good project for additional housing. And I
Mhm.
believe you mentioned originally that it was going to be single story and sort of more for either aging in place or for possibly young starter
ground-
families or whatever.
Yeah,
Ground level.
it'll be one
Mhm.
level. We'll
Mhm.
incorporate universal design features, so it will be accessible.
Mm,
Are you gonna name this? These units? Is this
The
gonna be?
complex.
I hadn't thought about that. We
Oh,
could.
we're just gonna call it Commerce Properties 4-unit development off Winter Street.
We'll have to put our creative minds together and come up with a name.
You know, because sometimes it has a nice cachet to people. Like they say, well, I
Yep.
live at like Whispering Pines or Babbling Brook or
Yep.
things like that.
No, it's a good idea. Yeah, let's think about that.
Yeah.
Is there any
The Mill view.
Paula, go ahead.
is there any problem with water drainage or pooling on the property naturally?
No standing water whatsoever on the property.
Okay. And does this the property that you added, does that go off very steeply down here near the red boundary line?
It's not, I wouldn't consider it steep. There's a little peninsula down on the bottom where the way the property line runs down there at the bottom that flattens back off, right down at the V at the very bottom.
Down here, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you go right off the stone foundation about 5 o'clock and you'll be
Okay.
at the V. That's actually a flat area down there.
Mhm.
And then if you take the old stone foundation and you go off to, say, 12 o'clock to 9 o'clock, that is actually the steepest part of that whole property. There's a
Okay,
bit of a ravine that starts there, but there's nothing that's terribly steep.
Yeah, and these will be sited to look out to the woods and to the hill.
Okay.
That'd
okay.
be a pretty view off of there.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not a heavily wooded site, so it's almost naturally graded in there all by itself as it sits.
Mhm.
It really does lend itself to a pretty nice spot to sit in your backyard, actually.
Yeah, and there would be very little tree removal. I mean, there'd be some, Tony, but a lot of it would be the brush we
Yeah.
talked about. I mean, the goal would be to
Okay.
preserve as much of that.
Okay.
If we cut
Would
a
it
dozen
work?
streets, I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Actually,
And Susan and I have been talking a little bit about whether this probably would be pretty much classified as a cluster development in a sense. And would you preserve this area so that it does stay green, natural space?
Oh, I think that was our intentions.
Okay.
From
Okay.
Joe.
Mhm.
Yeah, just the bare minimum out back to have a place to have a patio,
Mhm.
small deck on the backside potentially, but other than that, everything down there is going to stay left alone.
Okay. Mhm.
Is that, how does that work? Is that a formal grant of a conservation restriction, or is it just a condition of how does that actually work mechanically?
Well, yeah, the cluster idea was to take what would be normally the minimum lot sizes for each and every house that you develop, that you put there. The cluster idea is to put the houses closer together, and the balance of the lot sizes would be held in some kind of green space.
Mhm.
So you'd
And
want to
instead of,
delineate.
I guess it originally was set up that it was supposed to be like a deeded easement. I know with the other big cluster development on the other end of town there, we came up with a formula for the percentage of the land would remain undeveloped. So that balanced it out, because and it's even set up exactly the way a cluster would be, where you have the houses all together and then everything else is left open and not developed.
Yeah,
Well-
and so the space between the line to the right of the sewer main, that's a green space as well, still on this property. But it wasn't intended to bring the driveway right to the buildings,
Right.
Right.
right there. Yeah,
Yeah,
that would end
yeah.
up being,
Mhm.
you know, minimum of 15, but right now I have it set at
Mhm.
somewhere around 27 feet.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah.
I think the existing buildings and the new buildings combined are less than 10% of the total land area. But having
Right.
said that, I think the plan would certainly not be to add additional units. I mean, the
Mhm.
goal here is to have an attractive,
Mhm.
accessible place to live. And
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
Yeah, I believe even in the current zoning ordinance, it has this formula too, that if there's, say, multifamily over 6 units or something, that you have to allow a certain percentage for open space for your tenants in any case. So this more than meets the criteria of either cluster development in a rural situation or even village residential for the number of units you're putting in.
And
So it just
Susan,
seems-
you mean preserves open space, but not
Mhm.
publicly, not open to the public.
No,
No,
No.
no.
It's been, I guess the term public was that for all the residents that live there, they have that
Right.
amount of open space
Yes.
within the context of their lots. So,
And
let's
we would
see.
also, and we talked about this at the last meeting, but we would merge the 0.77 acre lot with 14
Right,
Winter. I mean,
yes.
it would
Is that
become-
in the process right now of the merging?
No, not yet. I have the paperwork to do it, but I
Okay.
wasn't sure of the appropriate timing for that. But when the time is right, we certainly would do that.
Okay, okay.
yeah, because that doesn't require a public hearing or anything. It's
Right.
a single owner
yeah.
is
Yeah.
combining
Yeah.
contiguous lots, and it's paperwork that gets notarized and then goes to the registry of deeds, and that
Yeah.
pretty much takes care of it.
Any other, I like the layout. I think it makes a good use of the land, a good use of the property. When you have your final layout all,
I was gonna say, could we try to schedule, say, a walkthrough for the near future?
sure.
I think that'd be the best place to start. That way,
Mhm.
people could really get a feel of how that actually fits the property a whole lot better than what the paperwork shows.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh,
we could
And
do
then
that.
wants to get a little bit further into the next step of actually getting a plan for one of these units made
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, we could do that. One thing, when you do finally have all the layout specifications, everything determined, when you, because I know you drew this over Tony Randall's
Correct.
plot plan. So when you finally present this as a formal application, be sure that he is,
Not on it.
or not on it, or the two of
Not
you
on
work
it.
together
No.
somehow. And
Yeah.
you know the process.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
got to be,
Well,
yes.
we might need
Yeah.
his services a little more anyhow before it's
Yeah,
all said.
yeah,
But that won't be an issue with
yeah,
Tony.
yeah, I know.
Yeah, no,
Correct.
by law, the only two entities that can indicate boundary lines are licensed surveyors or the Superior Court. So you're not allowed to mess with surveyor's work and kind of doodle on it. They get very upset.
I told him I'd put an overlay on his latest one.
Oh,
Exactly what it was. It only puts it to scale. I had to have
Right.
oh,
something
yes,
to
yes,
scale, and
yes.
it was already set at 30 feet per
Yeah,
inch. So
no, I understand. And this is just a very informal conversation.
exactly.
Right.
Yes, we'll need a clean copy.
With all the purple showing.
Yeah,
Well, it was either that or black and white, and the print shop in Plymouth isn't able
No.
to get the color. The colors are actually on the map in that color. That's why I tried to use them.
Yeah.
The original.
So the specific next steps would be the site visit, the formal final plan, and the formal application.
Yes.
What else?
Yes. Couple things. The site visit could be done either before you submit your final plan, if you wish that, or it could be done after you submit the final plan and application. And then we could do a site visit as part of, as one of the steps in accepting and reviewing the plan. So site visit could be done either way.
What would be more helpful for you? I would think if it's before it's finalized, then it would be easier to incorporate everybody's feedback. But
Yeah.
what would, on the other hand, you know. you
how much
probably want a higher
feedback do
level
you
of
want
input.
from us?
Yeah, no.
We're gonna
On the
need
other
paint.
hand, having a final plan, you know, gives you the a lot more clarity about
Right.
exactly where.
Right. Yeah.
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 I
Either,
suggest the final plan. That's-
probably. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the final plan is literally only going to include those lots.
Right.
That's all.
Right. Yes.
We
Yes.
won't have the other butters on it other than name.
Yeah.
But, all right.
Let's see. Is there something,
And
so
and
the driveway entrance is not going to change,
No,
correct? Yeah.
Correct.
And you
Yeah.
already have parking set aside for the existing buildings up at the top, correct?
correct.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. And you were able to keep everything without encroaching in the setbacks, which is good.
Didn't have to touch a thing, surprisingly.
Yeah, that's good.
And the distance between the housing is an average of 25 feet, give or take just a couple.
Sure. Yeah,
There
I can
still
tell
some-
from the scale. Yeah.
I wanted to leave it wide enough to put a vehicle through if you ever had to
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
comfortably.
Mhm.
That was, any type of emergency vehicle could pull in there if it had to.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Will the primary entrance be on the sides facing the driveway?
yes,
I would assume, yes.
Correct.
And then the view out the other side.
correct. Back,
Okay.
second
Okay.
egress would go out the back onto the patio or a deck.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
That would be the second egress.
Mhm. Okay. I don't think I've got any other
No,
questions
I
or,
don't have any.
yeah. Mhm. I think it looks good. I think we look forward to the next stage of this.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
And if you've got any questions along the way, get in touch with Susan. If she needs to bring anything to the planning board, she can do that, but she can answer a lot of the questions. And
All right.
also work very closely with the building inspector, code enforcement.
We'll get a
Scott
hold
Diep.
of Steve Heath probably this week.
Yes,
Weeks
Mhm.
out, and
yes,
granted, we can walk in there, which we can. I was in there the other day. It's not too bad, and have him give him a feel of where it's going right now.
yes, yes.
If he has
Yes,
any,
that's a definite, if there were any concerns, you want to deal with that right up front. Yes. And then work with water, sewer, and electric departments.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I mean,
Just
we
as
have
far
everything-
as,
we
as
still
fa-
want everything documented, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have all your ducks lined up, in a row, then it makes it a lot easier for us to do our job and to review the plan.
Yeah.
When you have when you
Oh,
present
yes.
us with the full
I agree.
package to act on.
Yeah, we'll have it all on there when it comes in.
okay.
Any suggestions from the other entities in town?
Mhm. Yeah.
Good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Perfect. All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank-
you.
Okay.
Should we sign off now?
You sure you can if you wish, unless, or if you want to stay here.
It could be
free
more
to.
excitement ahead, you know?
Thank you so much. We'll see
Oh,
you.
thank you.
I,
Okay. You get a few papers moved here. Okay, let's see. The Historical Society is next. Okay, and let me close a couple things here. Let's see. Let me just close a few documents here. I've got too many things happening. Need to clean up space here. Okay. So I do want to get the Historical Society information up. Okay, that. Okay. Okay, maybe I've got to go find it. Okay. Historical Society. The last extension of the case 2019-10. Was for the extension of the boardwalk at the little railroad depot up here on Depot Street. And the last extension was on January 27th. And the case was continued or extended to today, March 24th. And we did at that point ask if somebody could visit with us, speak with us, to give us an update of what really is happening, because this has been going on since August of 2019. Jane, what's the latest?
You know, first of all, I'm involved in having some extensive dental work because I'm getting
Okay.
implants. So I'll try and speak the best I can.
Okay,
So-
take your time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did everybody see the materials that I sent or left off
Yeah,
at the town office? Okay.
yes.
So there was a timeline there that kind of goes down through what we've been dealing with.
Okay,
The
okay.
biggest issue was last year because of the whole COVID thing. The gentleman that I usually dealt with was gone for a long period of time. Once he came back, he then started finding out what happened to because we did sign a lease and it had gone back to the state to go to the governor and council.
Okay,
It never was located. So they had to send us a new lease, which is fine. So they sent that, we got it signed. I had to get a new certificate of good standing from the Secretary of State, which I did.
okay,
The problem has been, we then had to get the insurance certificates, which they require.
mhm.
So I sent the lease to Sherry Norman as our insurance agent. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, here's the timeline.
Okay.
Okay,
And then she went about trying to get the insurance. Well, we finally got a certificate or a response from her.
mhm,
It's going to cost us $1,200 a year just for the platform lease with the state. And obviously that's way too rich for the Historical Society. So then we started working around to see what we could find out for other companies. I checked with like the Plymouth station. And then I also went back to Lou Barker at the Division of Rails, Bureau of Rails. And he sent me 10 more companies, which then I sent to Sherry to look into. And that's right where we're at. I have had no response from her as to whether we're going to be able to get anything cheaper or what.
okay. Where is the lease itself process?
I have the original lease signed by the Historical Society. but I can't send it back to the state incomplete. It has to have the insurance certificates.
Okay,
I have everything else with it, but the insurance certificates.
okay. And is this something that was, were you aware of this issue at the beginning, the
Well,
insurance, or?
No, well, the first lease we got, Sherry was able to get our regular insurance company to issue the required certificates. But this year, when she went to get them, or this time, they said we no longer issue that kind of coverage.
Okay,
So that is what caused the problem. I
okay,
guess this coverage for railroad lines is, there's limited companies that provide it. So that's been the problem.
okay, okay.
And our intention is, if we can find a way to get something cheaper, we have every intention of finishing or, going forward with this extension, but obviously we're not going to touch anything until we have a lease and your approval.
Yeah.
I think I sent you the bill that we got too, right? Or the one that says the $1,200 for.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's just for 1 year.
That's, yeah, that was third page in the packet.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty rich.
Yeah. And then that was
And then that's all
the
the companies
communication.
gave me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. But so basically your purpose here is to request another extension.
I'm thinking at this point, that's what might make the most sense, and hoping either we'll know by then if we can in fact get more reasonable insurance, or if if the historical society is going to decide to just forget it. This isn't going to work.
Okay. Okay.
Because I
Yeah.
think, if it was a case of getting one premium, we could include it in our fundraiser, but to have to raise $1,200 annually, I think would be really difficult.
Okay. Okay. So it is an annual insurance.
Yes.
Okay.
Considering you only use it, what, 2 months, 3 months?
Well, we have programs there June through September, and then we have the foliage rides, which go September and October.
Okay. Yeah. Mhm.
And right now, the money we get from the foliage rides pretty much covers the cost of carrying the railroad station. So it's pretty good with that, but this insurance would not work.
Yeah. So 90 days would put it towards the end of June. And our second meeting in June is June 23rd.
Okay, that would be
Okay.
good. Yeah.
30, 60, 90. Yeah.
And obviously, if I have any success, in the meantime, with the insurance or the lease, I'll update you guys so you have an idea what is happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sorry for not keeping you informed, but it's been very frustrating trying to get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Herding cats, as they say.
Any other questions, Kathleen or Paula?
Who knew?
Perfect storm, right? Between
Yes.
COVID.
Yes.
Okay, I will accept a motion
I'll make that motion, Martine,
to
that we
extend.
extend the Ashland Historical Society application for case 2019-110 for 90 days,
To June 23rd.
to June 23rd.
Okay, a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, Paula. Roll call vote. Kathleen,
Aye.
Paula,
Aye.
and Mardine, aye. Okay, we will get you a letter reflecting that.
Right. All right. And I will plan to, if I have no information in the meantime, at least let you know by that meeting
Mhm.
what's going on.
Okay, okay,
Perfect. Thank you guys
okay.
so much.
If you can, if you could get things to us 3 or 4 days ahead of a meeting, that helps. I know
Okay, I
sometimes
hear
it's
you.
hard, but
I know,
it
sorry
is
about that.
helpful. That's all right.
No, I will.
Okay,
Awesome.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Okay. What have we got left here? Um, I had on here reviewing the rules of procedure, and it's primarily about our upcoming meeting in,
The joint meeting?
yes. And stop it, in April. Stop and think what month we're in. April 7th. It is a joint meeting between the planning board and the zoning board.
This-
Process.
The planning board takes the lead of this
Yes,
meeting?
Yes. Standard process, both within our rules of procedure and within RSAs. When there is a joint meeting between the planning board and zoning board, the planning board is the primary authority as far as start opening the meeting. And what we would do is typically the planning board opens the meeting. Of course, we would do our roll call and make some general statement explaining what is happening that night. Then the planning board recesses. We don't adjourn, we recess, we kind of step back. If we were physically in a room with the two boards, it probably would be best that we even just leave the table.
Mhm.
But we don't leave the room, we don't adjourn the meeting. In a sense, we recess the planning board meeting, and then the zoning board takes up its part of the process. They will go through their normal procedure, whether they're doing a special exception or variance. They do their normal, accept the application. They have the public hearing. They take testimony, comments, etc., ask questions, then recess their public hearing, and then make their decision on whether or not to grant whatever the applicant is requesting. Then the planning, and then they can recess their meeting, or they can adjourn. If they've got other business, they probably would recess. Then their decision is communicated to obviously to the planning board, and then we pick up there. If the zoning board has granted the special exception or variance, that then the planning board then hears its portion of the site plan for that particular case. And then we make our decision. If the zoning board denies what the applicant is requesting, whether it's a special exception or variance, if the zoning board denies, then we would say, because of the denial, we do not have a case. We do not have a case to hear. That's basically what it is. That's basically what the process is. Susan, details? That's roughly the process. Yeah.
I think that is the most straightforward, because again, when the planning board first opens, you do have the option of at least accepting the application as complete. So it's before you. Then you have to go back and deny it or you could actually, you could even approve it contingent upon it getting its variance and then throw it to the ZBA. That gets a little complicated, especially going back and
messy.
forth.
Yeah.
And the ZBA could also put conditions on it, so that when the planning board receives it back again,
With
the
conditions.
conditions are part of the site plan at that point.
Yeah.
So it's easier just to recess and let the ZBA do their thing first. So you know exactly what you're working with.
What we're working with. Yeah.
Isn't this what we did for the Historical Society shanty?
Yes, we had,
Yes.
there was a joint meeting. Yep.
Yes. Yes, it was.
I was just trying to remember. I know I participated. What was it? Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah. Now is
The only other
go ahead.
thing to this is I sent a notification to the board members with check mark for receipt of email. Now, I know David confirmed, Mardine confirmed, Paula confirmed. I haven't heard from the other two board members at all, whether they've even opened their email and are
Yeah.
aware. I mean, basically too, because of the way the month starts, they would have just had a regular meeting the next day anyway. So it's
Right.
just bumping them back to a Wednesday
one
instead
day.
of that
Yeah.
Thursday.
Mhm.
But it still would have been nice to get confirmation. So I'm gonna have to chase them down.
Yeah, yeah. And when do all the notices have to go out? They've got to go out
I
pretty,
sent
they've
them,
already gone out.
I sent them at the end of last week because I think Saturday or Sunday would have been the
Would have been.
10-day cutoff.
Yes, yes. Okay.
I tried, and I tried to do it all in one mailing instead of two separate mailings, like a letter from the planning board and a letter from the zoning board. So I
Right.
did attempt to make it
Mhm.
understandable.
Yes, yes.
And I will call. I also have the ad lined up, so the ad will
Okay.
be running.
Well, that'll be going out soon. Yeah. Now, just the site in question is, I don't want to get into any discussion of it, but just for clarification, the site in question is the one that we recently subdivided off a larger parcel owned by Mike Latulip over on Albrook Road. So that is the piece. And the materials are, if you haven't picked them up, the materials are in the folders up in the upstairs in the town hall.
Yes, I like the new setup.
The new racks.
Yes, yes.
We
Yes,
got
I
ti-
remember the old days when you had to hunt for them, so
Yes, yes.
this is nice.
Yeah. Any other announcements? Ed? There is, I stopped in the office today, Susan, this afternoon. There was a letter, an envelope from the Lakes Region Community Developers. I'll make a copy of this and just send it out to people. It's about a virtual event on April 15th, sponsored by the Lakes Region Community Developers, about housing and the economy. Intended to generate discussion about how communities can address the housing affordability crisis in the Lakes region. It's April 15th from 4 to 5:30. From 4 to 5, they will be screening a film titled Communities and Consequences 2. So I did, at one of our LRPC meetings, we had a presentation by the two authors of the book and the accompanying film. So they will be screening, they will be showing that 1 hour film. And then following that for half an hour, there will be a panel discussion with the director of the film, two people from the Eastern Lakes Region Housing Coalition. So I'll send the information out if anyone's interested. Your choice. I'll just get you the information. Things coming up. What else is coming up besides the joint meeting?
I have a response to Susan, something Susan asked me earlier today about
Okay.
the OSI Planning Board Handbook.
Okay,
If you go to the OSI website, you can click on supplement. So you can just get the supplemental
there's
information to
updates.
go with your
Mhm.
2019
Yes, yes, they didn't
document,
reprint the whole thing.
whatever you call it, document.
Yeah, they just updated it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you don't have to get the whole thing.
Yeah,
You can just
yeah.
get the supplement.
Mhm. Yeah. Kathleen and I attended.
Did
Was
you,
it just-
Paula?
Yes,
Okay, the three of us. Okay.
Yes,
Wasn't that amusing watching them trying to figure out?
that was worth a front row seat.
At the beginning, Susan, they were having problems getting one of the presenters on. And so all of the discussion about who was having problems and who was trying to fix it was all because I got right in and
I
a
did
lot of
too,
people
yeah.
got
Me
right
too.
in. So we hear all this discussion back and forth as they're trying to navigate all the technical difficulties. And they
It was
finally
like
got things
listening to your
going.
parents argue and you were trying to not listen to them because it got kind of animated at.
did.
I was like, no, it's not me, it's you. No, you do it, yeah.
Oh, they can all hear us?
Yeah,
Finally, somebody
That
said,
was the.
Yes.
what's, Kathleen, what's one thing that you picked up from it that you didn't know about before?
Okay, let me see. I got my notes right here.
Just one thing.
Um,
Just gonna,
Oh, merge lots. No public hearing, no new survey. Endorsement of merger to register, you have to send it to the registry of deed. And if the lot is under mortgage, the lender must consent to the lot merger.
Mhm.
Did not
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
What else do I hear? Oh, development of regional impact should be presented at the acceptance of the plan.
yes, at the, and we ought to add that to our, probably our rules of procedure. That-
And
yeah.
site visits are public meetings
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
that we have to post.
Mhm.
Susan and I knew this from Heritage, and we had members of the public who did not agree with us, but if we're gonna do a site visit, we need to have the landowner, they have to be on board with us and to allow anybody who else might want to take a stroll on the property.
Mhm.
So we have to be judicious about our site visits and make sure we post that we are doing it because
Mhm.
it's a public meeting.
Paula, something that you picked up.
Well, actually, two things. One was the short discussion about putting developments too far out from the center of town. I
Mhm.
thought
The
that
scat-
was
Was it
interesting.
scattered and what's the other term?
yeah,
Scattered and premature.
Yes.
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 Mhm.
I know,
Yeah.
scattered, I can
I-
understand. The premature was like, that's,
Mhm.
in
I
your,
downloaded a definition of it.
Oh, did you? Okay,
Yes, so I'll share that with everyone. Because
okay.
it's a weird phrase that is thrown around
Okay.
in the RSA and you keep saying, well, what does that mean?
What does it mean? Yeah. Mhm.
And the other one was a more detailed conversation about recusal and the ability to talk about a topic that you have a personal interest in
Mhm.
and be able to put that aside in order
Yeah.
to hear what the applicant has to
Mhm.
present.
Yeah,
See,
that was,
I had to deal with that being on the BOS, so that I was pretty much aware of that information. But to go
Mhm.
back to that scattered and premature, you could see where maybe a larger community would want maybe their workforce housing
out.
out,
Yeah,
Mhm.
out.
try to, yeah.
We probably wouldn't have that issue here because we're such a compact area. We're 11 square miles, and once you get out of the village district, there's, you're not worrying about water lines and sewer lines. So I could see where that would be an issue in some other communities.
Susan, you said you had a definition to read for that?
Yeah, 'cause I was reading about something, and so I Googled it and found that somewhere along the way, I think it was either municipal association or somebody actually had a rather good explanation of what those terms actually mean. it's premature if actually the location is not supported by any kind of services that would be needed.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, like Barry couldn't have done it if he hadn't said, I'll never be able to do this without water and sewer.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
the lines
Yeah.
were there for him to extend and that kind of thing. But
Yeah. So that's part of it. One thing that I picked up dealing with zoning amendments. Obviously, the planning board can propose amendments to the zoning ordinance. The select board also can propose
Yeah.
amendments to the zoning ordinance, and citizens can by petition propose amendments to the zoning ordinance. The planning board proposed amendments. We go through a hearing process, and depending on comments, we can amend our proposals and so on. We've got that hearing process. Well, an amendment proposed by the select board or by petition cannot be amended.
Yeah,
It goes
that's,
on the ballot, even the one, obviously, I think with all petition articles, we know
whether
that-
they are enforceable or not.
they go on the ballot. Yeah, you can amend them through the deliberative session.
yeah,
But-
I thought though
but they-
that they still have to go through a public hearing process held by the planning board with anything
I
that
think so.
amends.
Yes.
And at that point,
Mhm.
it's not clear whether or not then you could say not recommended by the planning board.
Mm.
They did say that the planning board, while the planning board can't amend them, they can state whether they approve
Yeah.
or disapprove of
To
that
me, it just
proposal.
seems so messy. Don't do it,
Yeah.
people. Yeah. Oh.
But it was, I don't know that I learned a lot of brand new, but it brought back to mind several things that sometimes kind of slip by the wayside.
Or that we
Oh,
don't think
yeah.
about unless we're presented with it, then we go,
Yes,
oh, okay,
yes.
what do we do?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta
Oh,
find the process.
yeah, on driveways. We're talking about driveway permits, and even if there is
Susan
no,
loves this topic.
yeah, even if there is no permit for a driveway, if that driveway causes problems with the road, you can require that they repair the driveway in the road.
Mm.
Now, is that the resident?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because technically you're not even supposed to plow your snow out into the right of
Mhm.
way
Yeah,
or
yeah.
those
But-
kind of things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the town can require that it be repaired.
So if you have a dirt driveway
Mhm.
that
Goes
after
onto the
every
pavement.
rainstorm brings
Mhm.
more dirt onto a town street,
Mhm. Yeah.
you can be held liable for taking care of the
Mhm.
issue.
Right. Well,
Uh-huh.
this was my argument for the driveway regulations to begin with, when I was getting pushback from a former DPW and a certain other person, that we would just change the rules, that the DPW director just issues a permit. It's like they don't issue any other permits. The only
Yeah.
other entity that issues
Mhm.
permits is the building inspector.
Right.
And it's inherent if somebody's building that they'll need access to that site, and therefore there's a driveway, therefore the building inspector is involved.
Mhm.
And to say that in our regulations, the highway, I think agent is what he was referred to in
Yes.
the
Yeah,
written
yeah.
version, is the one who gives written recommendations. Now that
Mhm.
covers the town and it covers the property owner, that if they're foreseeing that there's going to be runoff issues or whatever else, that it's
Mhm.
up to the one who supposedly knows about these things, that if there's written recommendations, put a swale here, put a culvert there, you
Mhm.
know, do a switchback there, so that's supposed to alleviate the situation. And if you have it in writing along with all the other permits, and the property owner doesn't abide by them, yes, they're responsible for all the damage that is created by their driveway.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And that's where the documentation would prove it, if you had a written recommendations within the
Then it-
folder where you put the driveway in.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
that goes back to employees do not have statutory authority. They are employees. Even though we are appointed, but not elected, we do have, what authorities we have is clearly stated by statute. What we
Right, and the
can,
driveway permit, the driveway regulations are under the planning board, and appeal for getting one denied by the building inspector goes to the planning board, not the ZBA.
Mhm. Yeah. And one last thing that was interesting had to do with third-party consultants. Both planning board and zoning board can hire a third-party consultant to deal with a particular issue on an application. And then that would be at the applicant's expense.
expense.
But they did caution, be very careful. If you've got a case that involves both the zoning board and the planning board, the two boards should not be hiring the same kind of a consultant for the same kind of information. That duplication should not be done. So you don't want the applicant having to pay twice for the same information. So they said, be very careful, keep very careful records, particularly
Communicate.
if there's, absolutely, be very careful, keep very careful records of the expenses and reimbursements and so on, because the applicant may ask to see that. Yeah. So they did caution on that. Yeah. Okay.
Well, you can download the PowerPoint presentation, so sometime when we have nothing on the agenda, we could watch it again.
It's true.
There are times, and I saw that with this one and with a couple other webinars that I've done. Viewing the slides of a PowerPoint presentation are one thing, but a lot of times the person presenting it, unless they're just reading the slides, but in this case, there was a lot of added dialogue and
Yes.
comments
Mhm.
that went beyond what was on the slides.
Yeah, it wasn't somebody just clicking the mouse going from slide to
yeah.
slide, yes.
So it's tough. And I saw this with another one that I did for the library trustees that I attended. It's one thing to view the slides, but when they send you the slides of the presentation, they don't send, I wish they would also make
Oh, they
available the whole
don't.
recording.
Oh,
I wish they would make
If they
available.
recorded- if
the
they
whole
recorded the
recording.
Zoom, yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
No.
it's the commentary that makes it.
Yes.
Yes,
It is.
yes.
Yes, because also there were three presenters, and while one was speaking, there were also questions coming up in the chat part. And sometimes one of the other presenters at the same time was answering those questions on the chat program, and the presenter may make reference to it. So that extra dialogue is very valuable, and it's missed when you just look at the slides.
Well, maybe it's worth doing a written recommendation to MHA that
Yeah,
to say,
yeah.
Yeah.
you know, it would be
Pull the
way
yeah.
more valuable if you could.
But but it was good information. It was a good presentation. Yeah.
And even if they then only put the link onto their website for their members would help.
Right,
Instead of
right.
saying it's
Yes.
open to-
OSI also has a YouTube site, so you can see their webinars.
Okay.
I
Okay.
didn't watch any. There's 3 on YouTube, and I believe all you had to put in was OSI to get
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
I got the link from the OSI webpage.
Okay.
And there's quite
yeah.
a bit of information on their website
Mhm.
on different things that you can access and
Yeah.
documents and stuff like that.
And their staff is very helpful. I've
Yes.
consulted with them a number of times, and
Mhm.
certainly Stephanie was very helpful, and
Mhm.
the chief planner there has also answered a lot of the questions.
Yes, yes. Mhm. Okay, anything else?
Yes, Mrs.
That's all.
Badger, did we do good in our review?
That was a tough one. Yeah.
Yes, so hopefully,
We'll see. We'll get all that written up.
So is there any kind of follow up on when an ex officio will actually come
They
into
have
play?
not addressed that at the
No.
select board yet.
Well, again, I know you know one of the board members there, Martine.
Yes.
yes.
It's also the time of year where appointments for all the other positions would come up, and it would be helpful to maybe
Right.
once again announce that if anybody's interested in anything, everything has an opening. Every
Yes,
board has
yes.
an opening. So
And there
if
are a couple at
anybody is
least that are
interested-
inactive completely.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I think we are all set for tonight. And our next one will be the 7th, the joint meeting.